Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we are carrying on our series. And if you guys remember, what we did in the last episode is that we set up our server. We started to do a little bit of Unreal Engine and our server integration. Today I want to carry on that thing, but there's one thing here that I forgot to show you guys, that if you run into this problem before, if you basically, right now I just started my engine. Let's go ahead and open Postman, and right now I'm going to try to do a request to our server. And if you guys remember, for some reason, if this happened to you, if you send a request and that's basically taking too long to respond because it's saying that connection was refused, that's because our server is not running. So when you open Ubuntu, when you open you restart your computer and you want to do this integration together, you need to make sure that the server it's running on for our endpoint where we save the data. All right. And to do that, I just open up Ubuntu. It's just running here, our Linux server. And if you guys remember, let's go to our MMO server. And here, I'm going to CD to the DevOps. I'm going to open up VS Code from here, just by using the code command, all right? Just because I like it. It's easy to, to use that. Otherwise, otherwise we have to touch command lines and all that stuff. Right, so the next thing I would like to do here, right, is then I'm gonna open up here our terminal, and the thing that I would like to do here is that I'm gonna do a ls, and I'm gonna do a make start. All right, I'm gonna type my password, which if you guys remember is Unreal123, right? And that's pretty much running. So if I do make links, now that means that if I hold Alt and click on this, I should see my server running, right? If you run on the browser, it has like a 404 page, but that's fine. We don't care about that. Now if I press login, look at that. We get our token here back, and now we can do all sorts of things with this token. And if you guys remember, on our login screen, we're using that. So what I would like to do here today is that to streamline our workflow. So at the moment, when you press play, I want to show a login screen. I want you to type a password, and then it goes to the character selection. Then on the character selection, when you press and when you select a character, I am gonna assign, we need to create an endpoint to create a character as well. I forgot about that. So before we do this, let's just do the workflow for our login screen, and then we do that after. Okay guys, so here we are gonna go to our project, and I'm gonna go back to game modes. I'm gonna go back here to main levels. I'm gonna open up the login screen. So that's gonna be my first login screen. Let's change this to the default screen. So we're gonna go back here to edit. We're gonna go to project settings. And here, I think if I type scene or level, I always forget the right name of this. I think the one that we have right now is the test. So if I just type test, there we go. We're looking for editor startup and game default map. So I'm just gonna go ahead and drop that, and this one right here. That's it. So that's gonna assure us that we are using, every time you start the engine, you place on the login level. Now let's open up the login level, and that's a very simple here. We have nothing super complicated. Everything's good. Now let's start to integrate this thing, all right? We kind of need to, basically, games like World of Warcraft or, any MMO, every time you start the client, you need to log in. So we need to store that token somewhere so we can access that. Normally, we can use the game instance to store our token because it's the moment that you play in the game, all right? So on our game here, we're going to go back to blueprints, and we're going to open up game modes. And here we have our game instance. All right. Now with our game instance open up, we have slot number, we have the player save object, everything basically that you want to keep locally on your machine. I'm just going to put this on the side. And yeah. Right. So now we're going to go back here to blueprints, game modes, login. We're going to open up our widget. And if you guys remember, most of our logic happened on our widgets. We could split this and maybe, start to delegate this logic in better places. But I feel like right now, if I go back in here, right, and I type, let's say, my password, and I type here my login and login, I get my token saving all the time. So I can just use this logic to do things. So one thing I would like to do here before anything else is just that I would like to create an endpoint. All right. Sorry, not an endpoint. I'm just gonna want to create here. I'm gonna duplicate the login form. All right. And I would like to create some kind of a login screen or some pop-up that just say loading, right? Loading, all right? Loading data, I don't know. And this, the idea of this form, is I'm just gonna put a 00, 0505, that's great. I'm gonna just remove all this information from here. And on this black box, I'm gonna search for text. I'm gonna add a text. And I'm gonna center this text on the middle and fill. And I'm just gonna say loading data, right? Something like this. Now, make sure it's a variable, and we're gonna search here for a font. We're gonna change to that font that we already have on our project. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger, like let's say, I don't know, maybe 32. Yeah, there you go. Now we have the stuff totally set up. Everything is good. Now I also would like just to change our color to something, more gamey like. Now if I press play, let's see. So we have the loading data. So the idea here is that we show up a loading screen. And the tint, I'm just gonna leave to 1 because I want this to be like an action that shows up pretty much like a, like a whole screen, something like this. So I'm just gonna put 00, right? And now what I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna extract this component, put inside another component, and then I'm gonna just spawn this on our screen, add to the viewport, and then after a couple of seconds we delete it. All right. So to do that, we are just gonna go back to our reusable widget. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna create a new widget, and I'm gonna select user widgets. I'm gonna call WBP loading data or something. Now the loading data is literally just going to be a blank screen. I am not gonna pass a variable or anything like this. I just wanna invoke this whatever I want and say we are loading the data. Please hang on. And I would like also to create a new variable and maybe say TTL, which extends for time to live. All right. And we're gonna put this in seconds. And I'm just gonna make sure that the default value of this is set up to something, let's say 3 seconds, or maybe everything more than 1 second annoys the player. So just keep in mind that. All right. So we're just gonna do that. Also, maybe you're gonna give an option, say use TTL. All right. It's gonna be a Boolean, and by default, it's gonna be false. By default, I want to control. Oh, sorry, it's Boolean, not byte. By default, I want to be able to control when I want this to be deleted. So I'm just gonna create a branch, and then I'm gonna do a very, very simple logic. If this is true, yeah, the TTL, and we're gonna do a delay. All right, and then we're just gonna do that. And then we're gonna dis or remove from parent. Great. So that's a very simple thing. Make sure that both those variables are exposed to spawn, otherwise you won't be able to set those types after. All right. Now that we've done this stuff, we can safely close this window. We can delete this stuff here, right? And now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go back to my, let's say, client, to the graph. And here, I'm just gonna write this here. Here's where we do our login logic, right? Here's where we fetch out the data. Here's where we get the data from the user and all sorts, right? So first of all, I have a problem. First problem that I see here on the screen right now is that we have a hard-coded endpoint. this may be different from your machine that's on mine. So we need, and also when you put this into production, you need to put the right URL, right? So what we need to do here is that we need to make sure that this variable is dynamic. So you can change in one place and then reflects everywhere. So to do that, we are gonna go, if you guys remember, we created something called global BPGL MMO framework. Now here, I'm gonna create another function called fn gl endpoint API, all right? Now this is just gonna return for me an endpoint for my API. And now I can basically literally create a literal string, and I can plug this one right there. And this is gonna be, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna copy the URL here, gonna go back there. I'm gonna paste it, all right, here. Make sure you leave the /, all right? So now this is gonna be the endpoint, which is great. I'm gonna save the information. I'm gonna go back to my login register. Now in here, when I do this fetch, right? I'm just gonna put it right there. When I do all this fetch data, what I can do here is that I can do the fn gl get endpoint API. Oh, also make sure that's a pure function, because I don't want that to be, you know, I just want to get an endpoint. The reason why we did this is because imagine that we're using this in different places, and then you're gonna have to go to every single place to change this. It's a little bit of a mess. Now, ideally, we would like to create a blueprint to handle our every APIs that we can. And, you know, we can do that. That's no problem. We could create like a component that we can attach to our maybe player. But I think for the login screen, I'm just gonna leave it as simple as it gets, all right? Anyway, so now we're gonna append this last bit of API endpoint, and also we could, that API could change. So you could again go back to me and say, oh, I don't like the name of the API. So what we can also do here, guys, is that we can go back to our functions. I'm gonna create a new category called API, and I think I'm just gonna change this to just call base endpoint. Yeah, base endpoint, something like that. I'm gonna duplicate this function, and I'm gonna call this fn gl login API. And let me just rename this to endpoint API, just to keep our names consistent across everything. Now here, if you guys remember, we're just using API for the /login. Okay. Now I can compile and save that. So now we have the name. So now I'm just gonna append, all right? And look at this. We're gonna get our fn gl endpoint login API. So and then I'm gonna plug it right here. Now I'm gonna plug this one right there, and that's it. That's everything we gotta do. So let's see if this is working. So now our Postman, I have my password and I have my user. I should get something on the screen right now, which I do. Great. So that's working. It's doing the requests. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that we want for this. Now, okay, now we have the token. We need to do something on this, but only when it's successful, all right? So what we could do here, okay, what we can do here is this. So remember that widget that we created with our login screen? The widget that we created, sorry, to show up the processing. So we're gonna create a widget, widget from class. The class that we created, if you guys remember, it was the reusable, this one here, loading data. All right, I'm gonna do that, and the TTL, we don't need to worry about this stuff. And I'm just gonna quickly do add to the viewport. Sorry, not to the player screen, add to the viewport. Now, before I add to the viewport, I want to promote this and say loading screen. Or actually loading screen now, sorry, processing screen. Something like that. It doesn't need to be too fancy. It's just something that we can basically tell the player, look, man, this is happening. Now, what happened is that now if I type, let's say, my password and my username right here and press login, look at that. We get a full login screen. But now you're probably asking, okay, but now the screen is going to stay black. We need to basically find a way to delete that, all right? So, and keep in mind, guys, that's not the best screen. You should probably use a better UI UX, but this is just an example that I have, all right? Now, I don't care if it's a successful request yet, but I do care that I delete that screen once you finish loading. So, is valid, right? If this is valid, right, on our callback, we're just gonna basically remove from parent. And we're gonna do it like that. We're gonna do it like here. And if it's not valid, we just carry on, all right? Now, let's see if our server is gonna work out properly. Now we're gonna go back, we got this, put it here, get a username, press login, and there you go. Now we get a request and everything, it's great. Now we only need, the last thing missing now, it's just that we have to save that token on our, how can I say, on our game instance, because that will be our, let's say, free card to get data related to the user, to create items, sync player appearances, create characters, whatever, all right? So, to do that, what we need to do here is then now we can delete this. And I'm just going to create here a branch, all right? If it's successful, it should be, but just in case it's not, all right? Also, one thing as well that actually we need to do here, we need to do an end. And also the status code, let me just print here, because this is very important, guys. The status code basically tells us if we had a successful request on our server or not. If you're new to web development or any kind of API development, we have a bunch of lists of status code, and in this case it's 200. If you guys really want to get into status code, I really recommend checking this website called the cat HTTP status code. And I know it's silly, but it's the best. On our case, we get 200, so we have this guy. It's really good. Anyway, so now that I have this stuff working properly, we can basically do here that if this equals, actually, if our status code equals 200, and so we're going to do an and, this is successful, we can now create a branch. And we can basically, I'm just going to print here. I'm just going to print text. I'm just going to see if it works. So if I have a hello, I should basically get everything working properly here. Now let's just put my password and login. There you go. Hello. Now we can load our level. And because remember, we just need to basically load level. We can use, I'm going to use our object name just in case sorry, not load it. I want to open level. Yeah, because I want to transition to a different level by object reference. To be honest, you can use whatever. I think they don't really matter. I prefer to use the object references because I don't tend to change my level very often, but that's more up to you guys, whatever you want to use. If you want to use the name, just go ahead and use the name. Anyway, now what we need to do here is that I want to get my player instance. So remember, we can get game instance, and now we can, let's say, cast to BP, MMO game instance, and then we can set, let's say, our token here. Now, this thing is getting quite repetitive, all right? So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go to my global framework. I'm going to create another one called fn -gn MMO instance. and I'm gonna put this inside instance. All right. Now I'm gonna make sure this is pure, and I'm gonna paste this stuff here and get game or game instance. Is that the same here? Okay, that may be a problem because you see that we don't access this here. So actually, let's just leave the way it is. I'm sure I'm gonna find a better way of doing this, but for now, let's just keep it like this. So we're gonna get our game instance, and now we need to basically set values to it. So if I open up here our, let's say, if I do a Control Shift P and type BP, what's it called? MMO framework instance, I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna call this the player token. All right, player token. And remember, this only runs locally, and this is just the token that comes up from our server, so that's fine. If you want, you can categorize this, called API. That's totally up to you. Now I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna save that stuff, and now we just need to basically set a player token. All right, and you guys probably understand what I'm doing with this. It's just I'm getting the token from that, plug it there, go back and put it here. All right, now we have an absolute. We're not passing any options for this level, and that's everything that we gotta do. Now, one thing I would like to do before I can test this properly is now go back to my game modes. And if you guys remember, on the main, not the main level, sorry, on the main menu, we have a widget where we do some stuff on this. I just want to do so one player, when this starts, which is here, so it does, it complete, blah, blah, okay, I'm gonna paste this code right here. I'm gonna cast it, and here I want to get, let's say, get the token, and I am gonna print this in, let's say, very, I don't know, red color or something. Compile and save. Now let's see if our logic's gonna work. So I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna paste it. We're gonna go back right here. We're gonna paste it also right there. I'm gonna press login. And look at that, guys. We have our token successfully being transmitted from the login screen. And now it's on your game instance. So you can play any level you want as long as you are in the session. And you're going to be able to fetch that data and do whatever you want to that API call and get data, items, and things. So what I would like to do here is that for our next level, that every time the player creates a character, I want to save the character name. And maybe, I mean, we could save it, the player appearances, but already having the game slot to do that. But we can maybe find a way to encode that data and save all that. All right. So once again, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next one.